just yet. Oh, real. And just as soon as I said it, we are live. Hello, everyone. You guys notice that time? Oh, this isn't going to sound good. I was about to say that time of the month again, where we have what every second Tuesday, Wednesday, a webinar from Wise Sales Network. And tonight we are talking about diversity and inclusion. A year after George Floyd's death. Last year, these handsome gentlemen and I got together on Instagram and we talked about what was taking place, and not just what was taking place, but how we can best respond to it and respond to our peers, respond to the community and to the world, and then what our expectations were going to be and what our ask was going to be. So thank you for joining us. I am Joyce Johnson, founder of Wise Sales Network. I'm going to allow these gentlemen to introduce themselves, and we're going to go ahead and get this program started. Let's start with you, Malcolm.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Malcolm Brown. It is a pleasure to be back and having this conversation again. So I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Champion at Elanco Animal Health, based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and excited to be back.
Thank you. Bilal, passing the baton over to you.
All right. How are you guys doing? My name is Bilal Isifu. Again, glad to be back as well. I am the CEO of Unchained Inc., a tech startup company that helps HBCU students obtain career and mentorship opportunities while helping companies find top diverse talent and also solve and help them improve on their DEI strategies.
Awesome. I am just so super proud of these two young men, and what they're doing with their companies and with their brands. And I want them to expand on that a little bit because, let's talk about where we were last year and about where we are today. And I'll just say last year, I think we were 6 months into Wise Sales Network, which means we're a year and a half into Wise Sales Network right now. We've been consistently putting these webinars on and our podcasts and programming that we do. We're preparing for our second conference and really just working to educate, as I say, and develop our next generation of leaders. So, Bilal, talk a little bit about your project and what you're doing, where it was last year, and up to the big decision that you made that I saw you post. Was it today you posted it yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
So just to give a little bit more background on my company and the platform and kind of where everything started. Last year around this time, I believe I was just beginning my internship with Goldman Sachs in consumer compliance, but I also had started up my tech startup company called Unchained. I started it and launched it June 19th. It's now been 11 months since then. We've gained a lot of traction. We hosted our first ever virtual career event, which had 3,000 students. We had 600K site engagements for the month of March alone, and we had 30 companies participate. And from there, we've gained a lot of traction. We've won a couple pitch competition and the momentum's been there. And so now we've reached a point to where, we're putting systems in place to really operate and scale and really, serve not just the HBCU community, but as we're talking about this topic, DEI is a problem that cannot be solved over, one day or over 1 year or over any short amount of time. It's such a vast issue that needs time to develop. It needs time to sit in and get. So because we have so many years of not making this a priority, it takes time for it to actually become a priority, no matter what anyone says. So having, a platform in place to facilitate that, but then also having, strong people and dedicated people like Malcolm who are in the industry and actually making strides to actually solve this problem as well. That's two different angles we're attacking it from. I'm on a tech business standpoint. He's doing it from the actual company. So there's a lot of different angles to hit when doing different things like that. So my number one goal for my platform is to be a resource to, allow, minorities and diverse individuals to have access to the opportunities that I did, because I didn't become who I was until I experienced those things, until I sat into the office. I didn't know how to lead a meeting until I sat in the meeting. So getting those experiences in your mind and it changes you. But also, on the other hand, you want to be able to be in an environment that you're comfortable in. And that's why it's great that, now this is becoming a thing, because it's good to have a good offer, have a good job. But how do you feel at at that job? How are you treated at that job? So there's different layers to it. It's not just about having the job or the opportunity. Is this the best opportunity? And the best way to establish that is to ensure not only are you hiring people that are diverse and that your office is diverse, but ensuring those people feel comfortable and ensuring that, you know, all your measures and everything else that your company does falls in line with DEI.
True. And you guys hear the passion in his voice. He's bringing it to you and telling you, you know, and I think it's great what Unchained is doing. And you know, Malcolm, when you kick off your piece, I want you to share how you guys actually met and talked about this vision of Unchained, and then how you're being able, your role and how you've been able to support at this time.
Definitely. So this time last year, I was a student at the illustrious North Carolina Central University, Eagle Pride. You know, had to go ahead.
Oh my, we're all HBCUs. Okay, go ahead.
But I was, I was in the process of completing my undergraduate degree. I was studying business administration with a concentration in management, and really just in the final, kind of the final countdown there until I graduated. And I was also getting ready to start my internship for the summer at Elanco Animal Health, where I currently work now. And it was, it was a really interesting time period. Just because I think, it was the first time I'd ever done an internship completely virtual. I was with a company I hadn't really anticipated being with.
Right.
Animal health is not really an industry that gets a lot of, attention outside of animal health or outside of agricultural, discussions. And I was in neither one of those, so it was something that was really new to me, but it was an opportunity I was excited for, largely because the culture of the organization had made such an impression on me. When I had an opportunity, to meet with their representatives, actually at a career fair. And so since then, I completed my internship. I was interning in their finance team. And after I completed my internship, I actually received an offer. I received a couple offers, but one was to join in finance and the other was to join in the role that I sit in now, which is as the diversity, equity, and inclusion champion. And when that came across, honestly, it was too good to pass up, just because this is such a need, and so to be able to come on board full time and to work toward achieving that goal is honestly just, it's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, but it's something that I'm so excited to do every day, because then it says, how can we build connections with organizations like Unchained? How can we target, HBCU talent? How can we tap into other pools of talent that are not just at HBCUs, but diverse communities of practice and other things that, otherwise we may not have thought to go after, from an organizational standpoint? How can we just continue to kind of lean in and go after these things? To your original question, and one of the reasons why I'm excited to work with Bilal every time is because we actually interned the summer of 2019. We interned together at the North Carolina Department of Transportation in the Office of Civil Rights. So we were both there, and I remember, him having the idea for, hey, I want to do this, like we were all on LinkedIn, we're connecting on LinkedIn. And he's like, what if we had a LinkedIn for HBCU students, for Black college talent? And that would be cool. And I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. And to see how he's ran with that, I think it's just been truly phenomenal. And I commend him and all of the strides that they've made, because to see that, in that short amount of time, what's been able to happen and what's been able to come of that has really been inspiring, and I think that anybody can learn from watching that, watching his dedication to that cause. And I think one of the coolest full circle moments, and I think it speaks to the power of networking within our, within our circles, within our communities, within our internships, is that at their inaugural career fair, I was able to show up as an employer representative, and have some opportunities ready for those students, so I think it's honestly, it's really cool to see how everything comes full circle.
That's great. It's amazing. You guys are both doing, and you guys who joined the webinar, yes, Joyce Johnson, YSL's Network, just as we say in Clubhouse, to reset the room. And we're talking about diversity and inclusion tonight, and the conversation that the three of us had last year. We wanted to revisit it. And I just wanted to celebrate you guys, right? I just want to celebrate you guys because I am so proud of you guys. And every time I see something from you guys, I'm like, oh, it's a whole moment, right? And so, but wishing you guys God's best. I'm so proud. Keep doing the work, right? As you said, we get up every day and we just keep doing the work. And so you guys are doing a phenomenal job at outreach and networking. And it's important. Malcolm, you mentioned the importance of African Americans, Black, people of color networking within their own. And I think that's something in our community that we have to get better at, right? I see with my friends, my Asian friends, my Latino friends and things within their communities, they really do a good job networking amongst each other. And we won't get into that part, but the whole, how long the Black dollar actually stays in the cycle of Black businesses and Black people is lower, is less percentage than any other race. And so we have to begin to support each other in corporate, support each other outside of corporate. And as we've seen over the last year, the Black dollar and the Black vote really does matter. Right.
Agreed.
Definitely.
Right. So, so with that said, we're going to go. I want to talk about one of the things we spoke on last year. Right. And that was just about how to communicate with individuals when they were coming and asking us all of a sudden, our white peers and things were coming because they were feeling uncomfortable about what was taking place in the community and the world. And they wanted to come to us and ask us conversation. And so a lot of people was angry at the time or upset and didn't want to have that conversation. So amongst the three of us, we were saying, well, you know what? We don't have to have the conversation right now, right? We've been ready, but you weren't ready. So now that you're ready, you're going to have to wait on us, right? And it was okay to kind of push back a little bit and say, you know what? If you're sincere about having this conversation about what's happened in my world, then I want you to read this book. I want you to watch this movie. I want you to look into this documentary. I want you to understand or at least have some insight to what I understand and what I'm feeling. So I haven't asked you guys, have you had any of those conversations with your peers, and how did you handle those conversations over the last year?
Well, I can start. I think one of the, I spoke a little bit about the culture of the organization that I'm at, and one of, the impression that it made on me. One of the most impactful experiences that I had during my internship, actually, I had not too recently started at my, started my internship, and it kind of coincided with the fact that it also was not too long after the murder of George Floyd. Mm. So I'm coming into the organization, I'm going in through my inbox and reading emails, and I'm seeing all these invites because they had a number of different ongoing conversations. Right. And in those conversations, because they weren't, just in the past, they were upcoming ones. So I went ahead and I joined them. They were sponsored by our African American network at Elenco, and I joined in these conversations, and to sit and hear some of the discussions was great because they were framed largely as listening sessions, so it gave the opportunity for the African American population to get up and share these experiences for colleagues who had never really heard, or may not have known anyone to get that firsthand account of, yeah, this is what it's like, to live as a Black American, and so that was really impactful. But I think taking it even a step further, we had reading groups. And so I joined one of the book groups because I like reading. And so I was in a book club with about 4 or 5 other colleagues, and we went through white fragility. And that was just very interesting, because not something I expected to do, but I'm going through reading white fragility with a group of white women, and we were just talking about it, and it was cool to be able to have those candid conversations as we're reading through the material. And, they would ask certain questions of, well, what are some of the things that you think about? What are some of the things that you think are overlooked or that are not that don't get the attention, or, that we're not aware of, and so just, I think, in the willingness to engage in those conversations, it did allow for a lot of um, being able to put, kind of look at things through someone else's lens, and of course, it's just one step, along the journey. But I think it was something that for me left a pretty big impression.
Yeah. And so what were some, if you could share, what were one of the questions that maybe came out of that conversation? What was something learned?
So one of the questions I do remember was, there was a portion in the book where it talks about disparities, and so the question was, okay, well, what are, we hear about certain disparities, but, some disparities we just may not hear about.
Mhm.
And so what are some of those? And so my response was kind of just to go down a list, because we might hear about achievement gaps, but do we
Right.
hear about the housing disparities in terms of access to, access to loans that still persist? Do we hear about healthcare disparities, in terms of the treatment that people receive once they are, in a hospital, and the fact that there is still bias that exists amongst healthcare practitioners, at points, in the way that Black people are thought to not necessarily perceive pain, and these are all certain things, or the fact
Right.
that, birth mortality is still grossly, like, there's gross inequities there, in the mother and in the child, there are a number of different disparities. So I just kind of went through some of those, and
Yeah.
it was something where, it was nice to be able to talk about that,
Mhm.
and to see that, though it wasn't something that had come across, and I think it's it's beneficial from both sides, because I think within our community, these are things that we live with, these are things that we are faced with, and kind of baptized in, and so we're aware of because we're a part of the community. It's not
But
necessarily foreign.
everyone's not, right?
Exactly. So to be able to share that and to see that, it's, kind of that, wow, that
Yeah.
moment of, I never knew that this was going on. It's, again, that doesn't solve everything,
Doesn't
but I
solve
think,
anything.
yeah,
But
it
it's a
to
start.
show that, exactly, and to show that it's not just a problem that is now in isolation and in silence, but now it's something that at least there's an awareness starting, and I think that truly becomes the first step.
Yeah. The conversation is a start. We have to begin having the conversations, right? And I can recall driving, just drive, not even far. I think I was going to one of the local drugstores or something like that, and wasn't that far away from home. And this cop was just behind me, and just kind of like just going where I went. It was some months ago, and going, I changed lanes, he changed lanes. And I'm talking to a girlfriend of mine who is Asian. And I made the comment, I was like, why is he following me like this? Why is he on my tail? And I was like, okay, driving while Black. And she was like, oh my gosh, Joyce, I can't believe you said that. I've never heard you say anything like that before. And so, and I told her, I said, well, you read, you send you a copy of my book, No Back Doors for Me, that I released this year, which is all about my isms and things that I've dealt with throughout my corporate career. Right. And so, and I told her, I said, there's a story in No Back Doors for Me where I say every time I get on the road to drive to Austin, Texas, from Houston, Texas to Austin, Texas, you guys, which is about 2.5 hour trip to visit my brother, I really think about, should I go this highway today or should I go that highway? Because they both have their issues. Where am I less likely to be offended? Right. I can recall stopping at a store, and I was sharing the stories. My mom and I was on our way back last weekend from Austin. I shared a story with her how I stopped at the store. And, I've traveled a lot in oil and gas. I've been in all type of small towns all over the country. And I mean, I'll go to a city and even, no one looked like me in the whole city. And so I saw these young girls and things, and something in my gut said, Joyce, don't leave your car here, move your car, that, something's going to happen, what have you, or just leave. I think I was thinking too, or just leave. But I went into the store, and then of course, when I came out, there was these wet rags all over my car that smelled like urine. And, and it was horrible. And so, and not only do I think about that when I'm traveling, but every time my brother travels from Austin to here, that's in my thoughts. Is he okay? What time did he leave? And he's so bad about telling you what time he left, right? Or when he got back. And I'm like, and so I know that I'm always texting him or calling him in the car. Where are you? How far are you? Are you in the city limits? And things like that. So it's, and so she and I began, all that to say, she and I began to have the conversation. And she said, I never thought about that. And I reminded her of an similar experience that she had with her family going through a small town in Texas as well. And she said, yeah, I guess so. Right. But we've been friends for many years. We've never had that conversation. I've never heard you say anything like that, but it's a reality. It's a reality. And it was in my spirit that day. And it just, I just blurted it out. Well, while you're laughing, what you chuckle, what are your thoughts?
Nah, I feel like it's always going to be a surprise, just because, like I said, it's something that's been going around. It's going on for a while. And it's like people around you, especially when, like, for example, like you mentioned your book talking about, what you dealt with through corporate America. It's like they have certain, I guess, not stereotypes or different type of people that they present. And to you saying that was out of the norm because they don't know that's the reality of your whole life. But it's like, at the end of the day, to us, it's like, yeah, this is real. Like, yeah, I don't just read an article and just read it and be like, wow, that's some crazy stuff happening. This is actually our reality. Like, that could be my brother, that could be my sister, that could be anybody that I know. But for you to express that naturally, and then, them to take it like, wow, I'm so surprised, because in the office, you seem like you love everything that's going on. But in reality, it's like, nah, like,
then I have to go home and live life, right?
At the end of the day, like,
I got to live it there. So,
And now to speak on this topic, though, one of the things that you said that I like, both of you said, is like the measures that were taken, for example, at your internship, like, that was a good thing, but that was a start, So at the end of the day, it was something that's a start. But how do we take it further? And, just to bring, back my platform and some of the things that we offer on our platform, just like all social media platforms, Twitter has the verified check, Instagram has a verified check. The verified check on Unchained's platform means something different. So on the student side, it means the student has been through certain professional development courses that makes them a verified candidate on the recruiter's list. But on the employer side, that means that they're DEI certified. And before they even get DEI certified, they have to pass our checklist that asks them, what affinity groups do you already have in place? What's your budget for diversity initiatives? How many were approved versus denied? What has changed in your recruitment? If they don't even pass that checklist, they can't get the check, because if you don't even have the baseline checklist, we're not even going to allow you to take the course to just check that mark. Because if you have all these things that I listed first in place, that means your company is actually serious, because you're already taking measures before you're trying to get verified or, moving towards diversity. You actually have to already be working towards it, having the conversations to start. But what else are you doing? So allowing these companies to, not, to scold them, but to say, hey, if you want to do better, there are ways, this is how you do it. And we can help you with that, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort, not one. So there's not one solution to this problem. So however you can improve, try to do that and not just take the first step and move forward.
But are you doing the work, right? We don't want people just checking a box. We were having a conversation before we went live about a company that had asked me to consult with them last year. And they're like, oh, we're thinking, a year we get a handle on this. And I'm like, nope, And so I gave them a 3-year plan, proposal. And they were like, no, we think a year. I said, well, you know what? I'm not the right person for this, because if a year would do it, if you can do this in a year, why haven't you done it? I guess it's a bigger question. If you really can accomplish this in a year, why haven't you? right? It's not something that can be, we finally have to stop trying to check the diversity box. And like I said, I like how you said that. Have you already done some work? Are you sincere about the journey? Are you sincere about making change? Because in a lot of cases, they're not. I mean, we also talked about how, as we're reaching out to companies, I reached out to some companies about support for Y Sales Network. And they're like, oh, well, we're already working with, so-and-so. And it's like, okay, well, the impact of one. So you a $1 billion business, but you can only work with one African-owned organization or, driven organization or business. But you're a $1 billion business. And what did you say, Malcolm?
So, no, to your point about the one, they say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, but you can't finish it with that same one step. You got to keep taking
the same
steps.
spot.
Exactly. And it does take that continual pressure and leaning in and going after, because other than that, really you get into a point of complacency, right? And as you mentioned, with these, with $1 billion companies or with these large organizations, you don't just have one of anything. You do the work, you do your due diligence, right? So the same way that you can find different vendors and you can find different suppliers and you can find different anything else you may need, you can find different, diverse organizations to work with, as long as you're willing to dedicate the time and the resources and the people power to do so.
How many people are on your diversity team there, Malcolm?
So currently we have one DEI leader for the organization, and then I also sit specifically. My role sits within our R&D organization specifically. So 2 dedicated headcount, but then we also do have for our ERGs, we do have the leaders of them, their executive boards. We also have our DE&I council as well.
And not to put you on the spot, but I was just thinking too that a lot of time, and I shared on a post today, Denise Hamilton from Watch Her Work. She was interviewed on TV show and she posted on LinkedIn, and she was just saying that sometimes the chief diversity officer position is not a role to the real C-suite, right? To the CEO job or something like that. And it has a lifespan of about 3 years, because a lot of times they're putting individuals in these roles. First of all, the team isn't large enough to really support the whole organization and to fully drive things the way, so that goes back to your question about the budget, right? If you have a budget, even I know some companies, their community relations team is like 5, 6 people, but then their diversity team is 1 or 2, right? And so it's like, do you have the budget? Are you really putting the money towards it? And then a lot of times they take, we've seen a lot of promotions, in the last year in that diversity space. So they take our brightest talent, and sharpest talent, and like yourself, and put you in that role. But then it's an influence without authority, and how, and which is a tougher, I've been in both in sales roles. I've been, have the authority, influence with authority, influence without authority. And, and that increases the challenge. So when you get a high performing person that's used to seeing results, and if they don't have the right amount of support, the right amount of backing, financial or otherwise, within organization, it's going to be hard for them to really move the needle the way that they want to, and we all know this because we were all high performers. When people, applaud me for Y Sales Network or something we've done, I'm like, oh, great, thank you. But in my mind, I'm still not satisfied, right? Because my big is big, right? My expectation is big. I don't want to move the needle like that. I want to move the needle, I want the thing going off the chain like that. So that's why I asked that question, because I think that's another thing, that companies are going to have to see, and and you're new there and things, and I think with your influence, once you get your program together, you'll be able to go to them and say, hey, I think we need another person, or we need some different alignment, because a lot of times it takes a lot more people to get that big job. It's a big job. It's a big job.
Definitely. And, I think I agree, with your statement as, you need to see that there's the dedication of the resources, the dedication of the headcount, the dedication of the budget, and all of that is critical to making sure that progress can actually happen. And one of the things that I appreciate, because my role is a recently created role, and even our D&I leader for the organization is also a recently created role, but I think, it's not the end of our D&I journey, and so to your
Yes.
point, as we continue with our programs and things, we're only continuing to build out the program. And if anything, I'm very appreciative to not be the only D&I, and then that there isn't one. I was having a conversation
Right.
earlier where, the being able to work collaboratively toward this goal is actually very, very, very helpful, because it is a lot to do, and so to be able to collaborate and to share the workload and to attack things from different angles and, just work together, it helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. And like I said, sometimes it's the one. And so I think it's great that your organization has gone in and realized that it takes more than one person for that. And they've already doing some of the work too, because they do have their resource groups in place. I shared with you guys before the call that some of the people that have been working in D&I for some time with organizations I invited so we could have an extra person here to conversate. And, everyone sort of politely, declined. And we had conversations about it, right? Because I know these people and I respect them greatly, else I wouldn't have wanted them on the platform. But I understood that, there were these very large companies and and they felt, I think, they felt uncomfortable. Actually, one person wrote it, felt uncomfortable talking about this or having a conversation on an open platform, because they were in that role at their company. And I'm like, and then in my mind, after the fact, I'm thinking, well, if the company is really moving the needle as what they rolled out last year, because the reason I asked was because I saw that company was one of them that immediately jumped on the bandwagon, right? You guys remember last year, all this companies started jumping on the bandwagon, talking about what they were going to do and stuff. I've been going back lately, trying to just do some checks and, as we say, inspect what we expect. and I haven't seen much going on. And so I found that interesting that they would decline to be on an open platform to talk about best practices and what their organizations was doing around diversity and inclusion. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts.
I see you turning. I see your mind turning.
Yeah, it's more so just from like my standpoint, as far as like being, currently a student. I'm about to graduate in the summer though, but also being a student, understanding the issue, being around the issue, and seeing like the steps that actually need to be taken to solve the issue. And then, for example, companies that have, like Malcolm mentioned, millions of resources that don't have one of anything to, like you said, join the bandwagon and actually, join in the promotion and say that they want to do things. But when it all comes down to the numbers, everything else that matters as far as solving the issue, they don't show up. It's kind of confusing, because at the end of the day, like, there's numbers that shows greater diversity improves your organization. It actually makes your organization more successful. It provides more opportunity. It actually even, contributes to your company's succession plan, because having diverse individuals, and right now the numbers are showing that a lot of the top performers are coming out of HBCUs or minorities, and this is because they bring a different element to the office, a different thought process, and having a thought process that's different to an already growing business is going to do nothing but improve it. So it's almost like it's a win-win situation. You're the only person losing if you're saying you want to do and you're not doing it, because your business is going to suffer. Because as you can see, the world is changing. It's kind of sad that we're just now changing, but it's still changing. And if you don't get with the times, you're going to get left behind. Just like technology continues to improve. That's why everybody always wants to update its technology. DEI is an updated standard. If you don't fall in line with the standard, your company's not going to succeed. So that's all I have to say. I
love that. I love that. It is forever moving, and the standards change and everything, right? Technology, I just went on to WhatsApp and they had a little disclaimer. We're changing our privacy information. Need you to read this, right? And so I think that we have had change in the past. Of course, we've had change in the past, but I think somewhere I think somewhere I think maybe the leaders of our community got a little tired, was looking for some other people to step up, right? And I think that we thought that things were better. And if I pinpoint something out, I think we thought things were better, and it almost like went rogue at the time that former President Barack Obama announced his run for election. I think people began to feel really outspoken, for lack of a better phrase, really outspoken about what their thoughts were around race relations in this country. And so I think that overall, the organizations that are driving this change are doing a great job to keep us all informed and to keep us out there. And then we continue to do the work as we do in the spaces that we're in. One of the things I know that, for those companies, I want to notice that for those companies that did jump on that bandwagon last year, only a year has gone by. And like I said, it's going to take longer than a year. So I'm not ready to judge them or what they've done so far, right? Because it takes time to truly implement and to make change. So, we'll do this every year. And then maybe next year I'll actually bring the list out. I didn't want to put them on blast today, but maybe next year we'll put a list out, because I do believe it takes longer than a year, and it does take time to really bring impact, right? With anything, it takes time to build businesses. It takes time to build roles, as what you're doing, Malcolm. And so we're going to give them some time.
But not too much time.
But not too much time. We'll be back next year with our list. We'll bring the list out. You shake the paper bag, we'll bring the list out like that. But there was something on my mind I wanted to ask you a little earlier, and then I forgot because we got in conversation. You mentioned that you launched the business on June 19th.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
was that a plan? Was there some significance around that?
Yeah, that was the plan. So as you know, my platform is called Unchained Inc. So when you think of Unchained, you think of something breaking away or breaking free. And so our tagline is breaking the chains, which is pretty much breaking away from the barriers that stop, diverse individuals from getting opportunities, the barriers that stop companies from hiring these individuals. So I felt like the best day to launch the platform was on Juneteenth. As we know that was when, the slaves were officially free. And so with that same notion of, us and our generation, and it's crazy because this was around the same time everything was going on with George Floyd and stuff as well. Yeah. A lot of people mindsets were changing. People realized that, all the shackles or all the barriers weren't physical, and it was mental. And it was like, hey, we actually have voices. When we march, protest, they listen. When we create things, when we speak out on topics, they're heard. We just had an illusion that there was something stopping us from doing that. And so Unchained is that new tech platform that allows you to believe that, hey, it doesn't matter that I'm an HBCU student or I'm this or I'm that. I can break the chains. I can get an internship. I can get an opportunity to better my career. And as a company, I can break the chains from, the past, things that my company wasn't doing, and I can break free from those old ways and, embrace the new ways in the new era. So
love that. And so that Juneteenth too, so was that actually took place in Galveston, Texas, where I was born and grew up, where the last slaves in the state of Texas, the proclamation was read at Ashton Villa, which is a historical home on the island. So that happened in Galveston. For those Galveston people listening, go ahead and help that BOI, born on the island. So, but, just to reset again, we're talking about diversity and inclusion a year after George Floyd's death, what companies are doing, what people are doing, how we're interacting together. Companies are built with people. And so it's important that, we have this these conversations and this open and honest dialogue about what's been taking place. So one of the things I also wanted to share was, did I mention it when I was today? I really do think people are having conversations. I think people are doing some of the homework. I think people are going and reading and listening and what have you. So I was went to the chiropractor this morning. I was sharing with the guys, and I mean, different people are engaging me about my hair and saying, oh, that must have taken this amount of time, or oh, that looks beautiful, and things like that. And I'm like, wow, some people have done the work, right? I just found that interesting, that because I've never had that reaction or that experience before. And I was like, wow, well, this actually feels good in Houston, Texas, that we can sit and have this conversation. But I think, and I'm not, and some people would probably been offended, but I'm not offended, wasn't offended by it. Like, oh, I'm happy you've done the work, right? I can remember being on an airplane and having some sorority sisters in front of me with all their sorority gear on, and a gentleman saying, well, what sorority is that? Or, what's that stand for, whatever. And she got so offended. I'm like, why? Everyone doesn't know, Alpha Kappa Alpha, or how wonderful we are, or any of the other Greek, African Greek organizations, right? I may not know everyone else's organization. So just engage in a conversation that the person was being friendly about. And I mentioned this because I think sometimes we have to put let our guards down just a little bit so that we can receive the change.
Definitely.
Got to put our guards down a little bit, and not that is not bad. I mentioned grew up in Galveston, Texas. Right now, this past week, the NAACP was there because there was a gentleman who he was legally pulled over because his tax was expired, things like that. He owns that, and he says that on the news. But the way he was treated, the way he was tased and beaten and things of that nature. And it said that, that one of the officers put his knee on his neck. And I'm like, in this day and, this day and time, a year later, this is what we bring to the table. This is what so I'm like, what message was being sent there? And I think that's why we have our guards up, because we're steady seeing that, that type of message day in and day out. But I also hope that, we are also focused on some of the good things that are happening. Yeah,
I definitely agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Just back to your point, it's like last year when the events happened and, we saw that spurt of, action and some sort of change, people kind of lose faith and motivation when a year later, not even a year later, we already have like 5 more cases that are even, not to compare cases, but are at the same level or worse. And it's like, if things were really taken seriously the first time, why are we still seeing repeats of the same thing? And like you said, it takes time, for change to happen, but life is precious. How much more time are we going to take to get this done? Because at the end of the day, like, you can't get, you can't bring somebody back from death. You can't give somebody their son back. So it's like, at the end of the day, yes, we want people to, do their research, do their homework. But when is it going to be time for like actual change? Because if it was actual change, this conversation a year later, we would probably be like, wow, things have really changed. People aren't getting, brutalized by the police. People aren't getting, so my question is like, what has really changed and what can we do to ensure that, actual change is, not just like momentary, and it's not just, like you said, a bandwagon. Like, how do we ensure that change actually happens? And I feel like that's when people are going to be fully ready to embrace, because it's hard to embrace something that you can't even believe. So,
right. You want to take that, Malcolm, or you want me to hop in?
Sure. I mean, so I definitely agree, right? And I think Bilal makes a great point. It is really hard, and I feel that there's only a natural hesitancy, among our community to embrace things. I remember sitting and watching the verdict come down for Derek Chauvin, and it was the strangest feeling I think I felt in a while, because as I'm watching it, and I'm seeing the crowd out there and everyone's gathered and they're getting ready to read the verdict, and all I can sit here and think is, they gonna find him not guilty. Like, and I'm ready. I'm so ready. Because
I was ready for it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the justice system to fail, and it's unfortunate, and it's very sad. But it was something where you're sitting on edge, and it's like, and I just had this sinking feeling. And even when, I think the strangest part for me was that even when the verdict came, it felt surreal. It was like, I couldn't even sit here and be happy. And then, I'd had a conversation the day afterwards. And I said, this isn't, and I think, even to Bilal's point about how precious life is, I said, I can't celebrate that a murderer was convicted of murder. I would celebrate if people who are, hired and take oaths to protect the communities actually do that and don't murder people. That I think that's the crux of where, a lot of that discomfort comes from, but I think that the change that we saw there, right, which as more time has went on, I've been able to kind of say, you know what, okay, this is cool. I can appreciate that, but I think that for us to see that change that we're really looking for, and to continue to see that type of change really hinges on our ability to stay engaged, even when it is really difficult, and when it's really hard to embrace these things, and when it feels like everything is slipping through our fingers, at every junction, and that justice is fleeting, or that it's hard to find, or that 1 year later, now we still have a whole fresh list of names for 2021, which sickens me, but we have to continue to lean in, because I think for no other reason than the fact that if the names don't stop, how can we stop? If these things are still happening, how can we stop what we're doing? Because though it's not the finish line, though we haven't seen, as Bilal said, though we're not able to sit here today and say, hey, look at how great things are, we can't deny, I think, that there has been some progress, and that though it may be slow, we can see signs that the constant pressure, is working, and things are starting to move, and as long as we continue to stay engaged, civically, in our networking corporately, and staying engaged in academics, staying engaged in things that I think provide the platform to push for the change, from a position of leverage, because I think one of the things that I love about, platforms like Unchained, and, just the conversations that we're having, is so often we don't get to a point of having leverage to where when we apply that pressure, it's like, okay, well, you're applying pressure, but you're trying to push somebody over by pushing on their pinky toe. You got to apply pressure from a point at which you can actually, affect some kind of change. And so that requires that, people do get into different places. And so for me to be where I am, I'm excited for it. For Bilal to be in the position that he's in, I'm excited for it. And every time I see something like that, it excites me. When I see my fellow students who are doing their thing and they're going out and doing great things and getting into law schools and doing all this, I'm excited for that, because when you see the people and you see those cases and you see who's litigating them, this is why it matters, and for it to continue is really essential.
Yes. And and I'm excited for those things too, but then I'm also skeptical, when things happen that, like I said, when we're, when they're checked, when a box is just being checked. Great. So we're excited. All those great things are happening. I felt the same way you felt about the verdict. Right. And then I'm like, okay, well, is that going to be time served? Is that going to be a year and a day? So it was, like you said, it was just hard to get too excited. And then you keep hearing different names and different things taking place. And so I want for companies, on that recruiting side and below what you guys are doing and things, when people go to these recruiting events, that I think that it's important that they begin to promote, right? Begin to promote people. Houston just named, oh gosh, can't believe I'm the new police chief. Hours left and went to Miami. Gosh, I'm so upset with myself right now. I can't think of his name, but we have, an African-American male now, and he's actually grew up in the Houston area. And so when I talk about companies promoting within and things, I'm not just talking about corporations. I'm talking about our city government, our state, our federal legislators, some of the things that we are seeing taking place where, sometimes I feel we make a step forward and then we get a step back, right? Okay, so you went to the polls and you voted, but I didn't like that. So I'm going to make some adjustments right? I'm going to make some adjustments to make it a little bit more difficult for everyone to get there. And when you talk about leveraging, that's just what Stacey Abrams did. She said, okay, I got my bed for a few days, and then I had to dust myself off and get to work. And I had to leverage what we had to be able to get the calls that we made done and to get our expectations met. And she knew that she could leverage, and implement that through the Black vote. And that's exactly what she did. And so, yeah, I think we need to, and if we partner and build more partnerships, we can do that even better.
Definitely.
But I want to see those promotions and change, just not in corporations, but in our city government. And, I don't know, maybe you guys need to run for office.
Politics.
I might do it. Yeah, I don't know about that.
We'll have to get someone to run for office, but I think we need more people running for office, and I know it's not an easy task, and we need to put our money towards that, right? We need to because I always cut off the election dollars giving after the election, and I was like, there's still work to be done. I need to go back and re-engage that, right? And so we have to continue to put our money in there as well, because it takes money to do all those things. It takes money to pay people to go out and advocate for us.
Definitely. And I think, to that point, one of the things that I saw here in Indiana that kind of surprised me. I'm not familiar with the Midwest, but it was something that as I got here, the state government, the governor appointed the state's first equity, inclusion, and opportunity officer. And so I've heard her speak a couple of times, and her name is Kara Herring. And she's, committed to investigating and working to create equity and inclusion and opportunity within all of the state agencies and really tackling that challenge head on. So to your point, I think those are the types of things, and one of the times that I heard her speak, she said, I'm excited to be in this role. I'm excited for what we'll be able to do. But to your point about politics, you can do something one day, and then the next administration comes in and they nullify everything you've done, and put up a brick wall. And now it's even harder. So she, one of the things that she asked in her address was saying, if this is something that if you think this is important, if you think this work is important, then vote accordingly. Vote that this can then be codified into the state constitution. And I think that's the thing, the approach that we have to see, similar to what you mentioned about the campaign giving. I think a lot of times we get conditioned to think that we can show up, and if we show up, we bring everybody, we show up in force, in mass, and then it's like, yeah, no, we did it. No, it doesn't stop. The same way the DE&I journey doesn't stop, none of this stops just because we showed up and we won. We can win today, but tomorrow's still coming. So I think it's about how do we really set ourselves up to continue playing the game and to understand how the game works, and to continue on to really accomplish what we're hoping for. Right.
And absolutely. And definitely get engaged. I do stay engaged at the local level, but just not the national level. I think we have to do both. And we have to donate both. We have to put our dollars behind the things that are important to us, the things that are going to prepare our children. He said it'd be 112 years before we really see change in diversity. Some smart person put that together. And so that won't be in my lifetime, but I definitely am hopeful and prayerful that it happens in your lifetime. You guys are much younger than I am. So I hope you guys get to see it and witness it, and then
I don't see 112. That seems, I know they might've been smart. I know we can get there faster.
Yeah, we can get there faster. We're gonna get it done faster.
Love this generation. I think we can get there faster. We can do it.
I know we can.
We got to put the pressure on them. That's the difference. We have to put the pressure on them.
Okay. I'm with y'all then. We can get there faster. I love to see us get there faster. Monica, I don't know if we had any, I saw a couple of comments. I don't know if we had any questions from our audience. Definitely like to have the audience engagement today. If there was any comments or any questions for any of us, anything you guys, the audience wanted to add to the conversation, please do. Monica's on our back end, and so she'll be able to tell us if there was something. Oh, she said no questions at this time. She texted me. So why don't we gonna go ahead and wrap up? But I really appreciate you guys for coming back and having this conversation. I think it was an important conversation. My hope is that the whole diversity and inclusion doesn't just become I'm sorry, you can go on your phone and then before you know it, your notifications for what's that chat comes on, and then you're in a room, clubhouse, and you're in a room somewhere and you don't even know because you just touched your phone and someone was sending you something. But no, apologies for that. But I appreciate you guys coming back a year later having this conversation. Like I said, I know that it takes longer than a year. That's what I said to companies last year who engaged me about diversity support. And so we didn't bring out the list today of everyone that said they were going to make changes, and things of that nature. But, let's, should we come back next year? And next year we're going to have our list. And next year we're going to start doing some measurements on, what it looks like. I encourage companies and organizations to continue to have the conversation. I know that the conversations were being had initially, and just from talking to some individuals that I know about their companies, that they are not continuing with the conversation. And as you guys said, because there's still new names and new things happening, the conversation must continue. There must be some ask from our side of the house, and we need to be very clear on what our expectations are. And then we need to go back and we need to check and adjust. So we need to have conversations. We need to be clear in what our expectations are in our ask and what our expectations are from those asks. And then we need to have some accountability to go back and check and adjust. And I think that the CEOs of organizations need to get involved. If you have a chief diversity person or not, you own it from beginning to end. You are the leader and responsible for that organization. So the CEOs are going to have to stop pushing it off to someone else and really own the movement of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Bilal, any final words, and then just say final words, and then we'll come back and tell them how they can find you.
I would just to go back off what you said, it's good to have the conversations. We need to continue having the conversations, but not let it just stop at conversations, and actually put action items, objectives, and get them done, just like you would any other task on your sheet, because this is just as important. So make sure that, we continue having those conversations, continue, creating positions in your organizations like the one Malcolm holds, and then also partnering with organizations like mine, because it is a collaborative effort. You can't solve it by yourself. I can't solve it by myself, but together we may get closer to solving it and continuing in that route. So.
Absolutely. Malcolm?
So one of the I recently had an opportunity to attend a seminar, and it was hosted by Brianna Clover, 1619 Consulting, and one of the statements that she made, if you're familiar with the 4 disciplines of execution, she said diversity is a lag measure, equity is a lead measure. And if you're not familiar with that, all that's saying is, if we're looking at diversity, we're already behind the ball.
We're already behind.
We need to look at what are we doing to create the environment to see the change that we want after the fact, and so I think that's tremendously important that we keep in mind. And as Bilal said, the emphasis on collaboration. I know there's collaboration happening right here within Indianapolis, between different organizations that are now partnering together to see, okay, well, what can we do to bring about, to create an environment and a culture with, among employers that says this is a place for diverse talent to want to come, and not just come, but to stay, and I think Exactly. So all of that is going to be tremendously important, as well as the understanding that this is a journey. So I'm excited to be on this journey. I'm excited to be able to work with, my partners like Bilal and Unchained Inc. And excited to continue having this conversation.
Great. Share how people can reach you. Malcolm, your social, or if someone wants to engage you or your company organization, how do they find you?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn at, Malcolm Brown. My face should look similar to the face you see right now. But other than that, I'm also on Instagram at Brother Malcolm, BROTHAMALCOLM.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, everyone can reach me also on my LinkedIn at, Bilal Isifu. I also have an Instagram, The Real Bilal, but specifically for business. At Unchained Inc. has a LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And then you could also visit our website at unchainedinc.com to find out more information and, contact me or any of other of my team members. So.
Yay. And I am Joyce Johnson, founder of Y Sales Network. This conversation on diversity and inclusion a year after George Floyd was hosted by our team. Want to thank you guys for coming. I can be found on LinkedIn at Joyce Johnson. And I think my little link is like a Joyce J. I've been on there, I think it says since 2005. Were you guys born in 2001? Never mind. Don't answer that. I said no. So anyway, so that's how long I've been on LinkedIn. So I guess I have a pretty easy note there. And then I am Joyce Johnson on all of my platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, all of them. And then Y Sales Network, of course, sponsors this webinar series. And you can follow us at LinkedIn at Y Sales Network. Please go and register for our annual conference. It's going to take place on June 24th. We have an amazing lineup of some really great speakers. We have our, we're going to start the day with a heart note. Did I do it right? With a heart note. I'm going to start the day with a heart note because we really want people to be able to hone in to their inner spirit before and get rid of all the baggage before starting the day. And we have a new show that's going to launch there, the Sales View. We have some great breakout rooms, She Talks Tech panel, as well as Meet the Recruiter panel, where companies who have their recruiters there and individuals can engage with those recruiters to learn best practices about getting jobs. And finally, our last panel of the day will be from sales to the C-suite. Well, I don't think they're last, but from sales to the C-suite. A lot of people that from sales, you guys know I love sales. That is my thing, sales and mentorship. And I tell you all the time, if you're unemployed right now, go and get a job in sales. Hey, try it. You can always change up if you don't, but I think no matter what your background is in education, you get a job in sales. So please go to www.ysalesnetwork or engage with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram and register for our conference that will take place June 24th. It is virtual this year, but I promise if everything irons out the way we were hoping for, next year we will be on a beach somewhere. But this year we're virtual. So go sign up and get your ticket for the annual conference. Again, I am Joyce Johnson. You've been listening to Y Sales Network, and make it a great evening.